including the sanctions from the West. And this is why they activated the tribes in the West. Those tribes in the West, including the Rezegats. There's a brother from Sudan in the comment that knows what I'm talking about. Against the other local tribes, like the fourth tribe, the Masalit and the Zagawa. And the reason they did that is because there was a group that emerged called the Justice and Equality Movement, which was led by a guy called, I forgot his name in a second, the Justice and Equality Movement, led by, I forgot his name, but I remember. But the leader of the Justice and Equality Movement as well was also a student of Hassan al-Turabi. Khalil Ibrahim is the name. Check up the name Khalil Ibrahim and Justice and Equality Movement. So Khalil Ibrahim, Hemeti, and Musa Hilal were all followers of, so it's not, look, the politics on the surface looks easy, but if you go deeper down the rabbit hole, it's very, very complex. And the role of outside actors, even though they mask it as political reasons, and they say, oh, because of the Muslim Brotherhood, the reality on the ground is because of the resources in the western part of Sudan, particularly the Darfur area. And they are not doing it alone with the RSF, they are also doing it with the government in Chad, because Chad is on the border, and we know that the UAE is also present in Libya. So it's the corridor. The corridor there, the UAE has boxed in the Sudanese government. And if this fight continues for the next 5 years, the government is going to fall. It's insane.
By the way, do you think that Hemeti is from Chad? Because the Sudanese people, all of them that I have met, they say he's from Chad. He's not Sudanese, actually.
You need to understand that the Rezegats or what the Falata, most of those groups, the tribes, they're moving and out. These borders you have are arbitrary. They didn't exist. So on the border, on the western part of Sudan, they have the same tribes are in Chad. Some of them are in Sudan, and some of them are in the some parts of Central Africa, but not a lot of them. But these are nomadic tribes that have been moving in and out, trading in camel and donkeys. And the guy was basically a camel header. He was basically a bandit. His uncle, who is a respected tribal leader in that western part of Sudan, is a guy called Musa Hilal. So people talk about Hemeti. They didn't know how the whole stuff started. It started with Musa Hilal. You can check up the name. Musa Hilal was the main guy.
Sab, I need to go get to work. You asked me for something. I sent the answer on Discord. You didn't see it, but I did also send you a message on Telegram.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I mean, yeah. I hope we can make it happen.
Yeah, you asked me for something.
And by the way, Bella, I like her already. She, because it's difficult to impress me, right? It's difficult, very difficult to impress me. But when she speaks, she knows about the nuances and the little details. I might not agree with some of the things, and she might be right because mostly it's about the discourse. But she's very, very astute and detailed, particularly in this area. And even this, Bella, even this conversation about Yemen, when she came up, she sort of didn't really believe that I knew anything about Yemen until we continue. The conversation, went on a bit. But she's very, very, very intelligent.
And Sab, I did brag about you when I asked. I did brag about you because you're my brother. I do have to go, but there is an important message you need to read on Telegram. Okay, if you can check it out right away. I'm gonna jump down, check on Layla. She's saying they shot right above us, and I do have to get to work. I'll be listening in.
No problem.
Lots of love.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Sab, I have a question for you because I'm trying to learn the geopolitics of and everything and the things that are happening in Sudan. So the UAE has been backing the RSF and been arming them and been assisting the unalignment of the Sudanese people. Is there anything else other than the gold mines that the UAE is trying to take control of? Because I understand they took over the control of the gold mines. Also, they've taken control of the land. So the farmlands, everything.
Yeah, agricultural lands and but this is not. Look, a lot of people now look at the UAE. They came in as opportunists because Sudan itself. And by the way, this not the idea that they just came in and started supporting the RSF is all nonsense. Omar al-Bashir himself empowered the RSF. The reason he did that, because if you look at the rank of the RSF, they are mostly tribal people from the south. They are Arabite tribe, but they are different, and they've never really been accepted by the Northerners because the Northerners see them as, these people from Chad, these outsiders, these camel headers and so on and so forth, including some of the Fulanis in Blue Nile. They have other small tribes that are supporting them. But the reason Omar al-Bashir empowered them, and I'm giving you like the background to it, is because of the conflict that was going on in both in the south at that time, and after, particularly after the what they call it, the I think it's the I don't know. There was the Abuja Accord, and there was this agreement that was signed around 2005. Okay, after that agreement was signed, conflict broke out in the west. Okay, in the Jabal al Nuba, the Nuba Mountains. Is that how you call it in Arabic? How do you call mountain? Jabal al Nuba, is that?
Jabal. Jabal.
Yeah, Jabal al Nuba, and in some part of Kordofan, and mostly in the Darfur area. Darfur is very big. There's North Darfur, East, West, and I think in South Darfur is on the border, Jabal al Nuba, and the South, which is on the border with Central Africa. A lot of people didn't know this. This also spiraled into what they call the Central African Bush War, which also involved the likes of Congo, because Congo and Cameroon share border with Central Africa. So this is it's an intractable conflict of resources. So, but the reason I gave you this background is that the UAE and Saudi Arabia invested or started putting money into Sudan because of the economic problem as a direct result of the sanctions on Omar al-Bashir by the West. And the reason why the West have been pressuring Omar al-Bashir is because of the history goes back. In fact, I want to go back to 1955. Sudan have always found itself in this position because Sudan was among those countries that said there will be no peace with Israel. They also supported the Palestinian resistance. Carlos the Jackal was in Sudan. Osama bin Laden came and was a host in Sudan. And how did bin Laden was a guest of who? Guess who? Hassan al-Turabi. The same guy I mentioned. You cannot discuss the history of modern day Sudan, Sudan of today, from the 90s or from the early 80s without mentioning Hassan al-Turabi. Most of these things you're seeing today has been put in place by Turabi himself, including the emergence of the removal of Nimeri and the emergence of Omar al-Bashir as president. So yes, the UAE and Saudi Arabia came to the rescue and they gave them some money. And in turn, they wanted concession or want access to one thing or the other. And by the way, at some point, the Janjaweed wanted to turn against Omar al-Bashir because he promised them that if they fought for him in the West, that is going to promote them. So those guys were like camel traders. They were dirty looking. In fact, there's a video I can show you about what Hemeti looked like in 2010. They were barely wearing shoes. These were like ragtag militia. And all of a sudden, they promoted them to the center and now gave them these pickup trucks and made them the presidential guard. And the reason that happened is because the history of Sudan, even from the days of Nimeri, from the 70s and the 60s, is military coup upon military coup. So he did not trust the Sudanese armed forces not to remove him. So as an insurance policy, he brought in the Janjaweed. I mean, the RSF is a sort of a new name, rebranding themselves, but they call them the devil on horseback. These were people that were fighting on donkeys. So basically, they brought them and gave them these beautiful pickup trucks and armed them to the teeth in order to show up the base of Bashir. So they're playing this game of like they're using the RSF as an insurance policy in case the army wants to remove him. And what happened? I think the Emiratis and the Saudis, or one of those countries, got involved in it because, again, there are so many reasons why that happened. We can talk about the economic problem, the rise in the price of bread, and all the protests that happened with the removal of Omar al-Bashir. And what happened? These two guys that ideologically and so many ways do not see eye to eye, ganged up together and removed Bashir. And then they set up the Military Transitional Council. There was even a time they brought in, a civilian prime minister or, political figure in such a role to lead the transitional period. And in terms of conflict, again, because Africa, this is my domain. I've been to a few places that I've worked that I don't want to talk about in relations to conflict resolution. So the standard practice is a thing called DDR. And this is also part of the problem. DDR is disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration, I think. These are the three key words. So there was the idea that the RSF will be disarmed, will be demobilized, demobilization, yes, will be demobilized, will be disarmed and reintegrated into the armed forces. And yeah, but the Hemeti and his people said, yeah, we will do that only if there's election. Yeah, only if there's election. And the election in this sense, there were a lot of outside forces that wanted to see the back of Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his people, because there's some elements that don't like this, the guys from the RSF, and they didn't want the role that the America and the Saudis were playing in their country. Not the Saudis, the Emiratis in particular, because the Emiratis also invested a lot of money in Sudan during the uprising against Omar al-Bashir and the economic problems. So it's all connected. But again, the reason I speak about this, guys, is because in Africa here, particularly the Saudis are becoming more of a problem in the Sahel of Africa. Through the fundamentalism, through ideology and monies, the funding Wahhabi institutions, some of them coming in form of charity. And we can go back even to the 80s. A lot of people didn't know this. The founder of Al Mohabitun was in Saudi Arabia, was recruited by the Saudis through the French that were in the region, and fought in Afghanistan. Write down the name. Mokhtar Belmokhtar, that's the name. And you see Al Mohabitun today, or what they call the Sentinels, Mujao, Janin, most of these groups, this is the ideological basis upon which they are fighting. But I know for a fact that it's not just about the ideological basis, because the ideology is used as a recruiting sergeant. All of this is fight for resources, is a fight for control, and people want to have boots on the ground so they can protect their interest. So again, this is why when I look at what the Saudis are doing in the Middle East, I'm not really comfortable with it. And this is my opinion, by the way. Does that mean that the Israelis are the good guys? These guys are the worst of the worst. And I don't know why anybody is still tolerating them in the region. Is it so difficult for everybody in the region to come together to kick these guys out or put them in their place once and for all? The reason is difficult, I believe, could be because of the Americans. So again, this is why I didn't agree with the lady that somehow if Israel ceases to exist, Saudi Arabia will cease to exist. No, that land has been there. The history of that area have been there for thousands of years. These guys are British creation that came in 1948. So the Jews, these so-called Jews from Europe don't belong on the land. Sorry, go on, Rima. I hate doing these monologues.
I'm so sorry, but I was very passionate about this case. Like yesterday, I watched the documentary why they want the deweaponizing to happen in Lebanon, precisely in Lebanon. The deweaponizing we know because of Hezbollah. And Leila, you can give me your opinion because
1 second. There's this person who's threatening me with death.
Who is that?
The name is Grand Artista, and your Haida. She's saying first Nasrallah next to you.
Who's that person? I'm going to block the just.
I don't know, but it's an Israeli, definitely an Israeli.
Hold on. If an Israeli is here and they want
said
to do
first
that,
Nasrallah, then you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to block them because
I have given you more powers to block anybody. Simple. And if you see it, just call my attention. If you are my guest, if they don't respect you, they should get the F out.
I also have to tell you one thing. When you have Israelis on the panel, I don't communicate with them, and I prefer to drop from the panel. Legally, I don't speak to Israeli occupation of my country.
That's it. Go ahead. I just dropped them.
Well, the thing is, if they have a different nationality and they come in and say that they're Canadian, there's no problem. But when we discover that they're Israeli, we just drop. When I'm responding to them in their capacity as somebody with a second nationality, it's okay. You can actually use the clips on that one. It doesn't hurt me at all. I can fight it legally in my country. But having said that, I prefer when people send death threats, I have the right to actually block them.
But you can block them. That's what I said. You can check. You have a...
How to do that? Because...
do you know how to do it?
Bella just showed me. But the thing is, that person needs to be blocked.
What I'm
kicked
saying
out
is...
from your
what I'm saying is, if I didn't pick it up, just click on any name. Exactly. That has been blocked. You've been able to do that. It's easy. Once they write it and you see it, you block them. And mods, take note.
I've been here for 9 days exactly, so I'm just learning my way through TikTok, and around TikTok.
Yeah. But TikTok is a completely different ecosystem.
Interesting. This is in the eastern sector. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what happened is basically I'm rerouting my phone, so the connection is not basically that stable. They don't want anybody around the new base that they're building. That's the thing. They're building a 6th base across from Adaisi. It's actually inside the Adaisi area. It's a Lebanese southern town in the eastern sector.
Wow. It's crazy.
It's part of the daily fun, like sometimes they shoot above you, sometimes they threaten you, sometimes they just send quadcopters. February 18th was the best day because I was there when they withdrew from Kfar Killa, And I was filming there with a colleague of mine, and they just sent basically a quadcopter after us and continue to be accompanying our car in a threatening mode
Yeah,
until
that's
basically
it.
we reach away
It's
from
psychological
yeah.
sometimes. They use these quadcopters to intimidate, to bully, and sometimes they put these sounds on them they, to basically threaten. And by the way, if you want, there's this.
Work with us, we use, I mean, like, you see these sounds? I was like, oh, interesting. Like, let me just move to the other side. The thing is, we don't give a damn. And this actually makes them more irritated. And you get to see them face to face, right? And the irritation on their faces that they cannot intimidate you. It's
I'll
just
share.
basically,
I'll share
it's worth
something.
all the money in the world.
I'll share something with you in relations to drone warfare. It is the next level. So, whatever the Israelis are doing in the Middle East, they think they are strong. If you really want to see full display, the power of drone, it's on the front line between Russia and Ukraine. 1,200 kilometers, between 5 to 6 kilometers in depth. The drones are the next big thing. Yeah, it's so sometimes some of these drones are actually surveillance drones, but they put some sort of sound on them. I forgot the name how they do it in order to have this buzzing sound to intimidate. War itself is violence, right? So they do that to intimidate, to bully, and those drones might not be carrying any payload. They might just be surveillance quadcopters or drones as they call them.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm reading the comments at the moment. Like, who does debates arguments with their opponents? I'm not here to debate the opponents. The Israelis have had 80 years to tell the world what they had to say, and they controlled the media. It's our time to say our part of the narrative. I'm not here to debate. I'm here just to shush your lies, and that's it. I don't care about listening to you guys. I don't care about what you think. You have zero right as an occupier. And at the end of the day, you are in the wrong, and everybody knows it, and everybody has seen your ugly face. That's it. Masks are off.
Yeah. So, Leila, I think I've been offending a few people lately when I talk about this topic, and so sometimes it's not about the emotional part of it. It's just that I am trying to understand where they stand. And my question to you is, what have they done?
They are cowards.
You talked about Faisal, but what have the system done for the Palestinians? What is the tangible thing that the system in Saudi and in the Gulf basically done for, not just for the Palestinians, but for their neighbors? Trump was there in 3 days. They gave him, in total, close to 1.2 trillion in military contracts and promise of investment.
5.1 trillion. 5.1
No,
trillion.
I thought they said 1.2 trillion.
Trillions and $100 billion, as well as an airplane that's only
400 million.
That's worth dollars.
So these guys are playing hunger games. They're just sitting on loads of cash, and they're thinking, what can we do with this money? What else can we do? Like, basically, what that money would have done for anybody? Like, honestly. It's
Look, I had made a post on Twitter. It was a very long post after Saudi Arabia issued a statement a week and a half ago saying that they don't want to go into war with Israel because they understand the dynamics and they cannot actually face it because of the technology and among other things. Like, excuses, right? And I said, like, no, just say it as it is. You are cowards. I directly responded to Farhan Al Saud. That's basically their foreign affairs minister. I said, no, brother, just say it as it is. You are cowards. You don't want to unite.
But that's
you
not
don't
excuse.
fight the Israelis because that's it.
But that is not an excuse. The Israelis are technologically superior to the Saudis. What can the Saudis do? But again, it's not about military confrontation. It's about the gesture. It's about the body language. I want to see practical economic stance and political stance from, I think, Leila, what happened? You dropped. Practical political and economic stance against these guys to show clearly that, that you want. Look, I understand. I'm not stupid. I don't think the Saudis should wake up and start bombing Israel because it's suicide. It's suicide, and again, it's the fact that the system itself needs support from the United States. They need, most of their military hardware they buy from abroad, and most of it, we saw by the way, I watched the war in Yemen, and I saw the terrible performance of Saudi Arabia, particularly the Air Force in Yemen. And that kind of army is not even a march for Egypt, or even if Hezbollah is ready, let alone going up against the Israelis. Yeah, but I do understand what he's saying. But sometimes they try to make this kind of realistic, not realistic. They try to make this kind of political argument to back up, the nefarious positions that they've taken in the region. Not for a long time. It's not just about Israel or the Palestinian conflict. It's other issues in the region that I have a problem with. And again, correct me if I'm wrong. Did American planes fly from Jeddah to bomb Saddam? I think in 2003, or is it 91? Did American planes that bombed Saddam fly from Jeddah in Saudi Arabia? I think in 91 or 2003.
Basically, the ones that they had actually bombarded Saddam, that was in 2003. I think it was March 2003. Yeah, it was March. It was March time, because it was like the end of our rainy season in Lebanon. We were following it up. I was with the Daily Star at the time. It was in the Iraqi war. They used their bases. It's not from Jeddah. They used the military bases, the U.S. military bases in Saudi Arabia. So it's not only Jeddah, like they have other military bases across Saudi Arabia.
The biggest one I know of at that time was in Jeddah. I know they have a lot of airfields and airstrips. They use the biggest one that I know of in the lead up to 2003 was in Jeddah. Biggest one. That's the one I know about. So when I say Jeddah, I don't mean they just flew from Jeddah.
Multiple bases, and both, like the two of the bases were utilized for logistics. The others were used for warfare, including with the planes. And guys, for those who don't know, we were talking about Operation Iraqi Freedom, For those who want to actually go and search it.
Yeah. And I think it was the same thing during the First Gulf War as well. Because like I said earlier, during the segue to this conversation, when I spoke about Yemen, and Yemen at that time, during this time period, was a member of the UN Security Council, non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, and they voted against the American attempt to go to war in Iraq, which they did regardless. This was during the attempt by Saddam to seize Kuwait. And Saudi Arabia did punish Yemen. They said under pressure from the United States. But clearly it was the Saudi system that did that and expelled a lot of them and punished them.
To know the name of the military base, a friend of mine just sent me. Like I think he's listening in the space. He just sent it to me, like by DM. It's called the Prince Sultan's base, and it's
The
not
one
in
in
Jeddah.
Yeah, that's what I said.
No, it's not in Jeddah. It's called Al Kharij. The government is called Al Kharij, and it's right outside from Riyadh. So it's not from Jeddah. Prince Sultan Air Base, that's the one that was used basically where the airplanes came out to bombard Saddam Hussein. This guy is a veteran, just to let you know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Wrong. If he turns out to be wrong, I'm going to send you like basically $10 worth of something. Like this guy is never wrong.
I think Royal Air Force Base in Riyadh, King Fahd Air Base in Daman. There are a few of them there, but I'm sure that
it was Prince Sultan's Air Base. So that he said like it's in the governorate of Kharij. It's not in Jeddah. Prince Sultan Air Base. That was the one where the American warplanes flew from to go and bombard Saddam.
Yeah. No,
K-H-A-R-J.
I'll take a look at it, an extensive look at it, because if you remember, I think around the period of 99 and 98, when Bin Laden was, going against the government in Saudi Arabia, and they even took away his passport. This was one of the reasons he was mentioning that the Americans and the Zionists have bases in Saudi Arabia, which is the Holy Land. This is what he said at that time, that this is wrong. And he turned against his own state.
Funniest statement that came out following Netanyahu's basically announcement of Greater Israel The funniest statement came out from Lebanon. They denounced, wait for it, they denounced basically the Israelis claiming parts of Saudi Arabia as Greater Israel, but they did not denounce that Netanyahu actually said that we want to take over all of Lebanon. That was like the most hilarious thing I've ever heard.
It's
Our Foreign
hideous.
Affairs Minister is literally the right hand of Afichai Adrai, I think. I think he basically was breastfed by Afichai Adrai's mom at one point. I'm not sure. But like this guy acts more Zionist than the Zionists that we see on TV.
This is what I don't understand. What's going on in Lebanon? This was, I don't know, growing up as a child, there's this, because I've always been interested in politics of this sort, coming from the family I came from. And I think I told a story before, Rima, on this, and I said at age 14, I read 30 Minutes in Entebbe. 30 Minutes in Entebbe was what opened my eye to what the Israelis were doing. And this was during the period the Boeing, or was it the Airbus or Boeing that was en route to France, was taken by, I think, Islamic Jihad or one of those groups, and they flew it to Entebbe in Uganda, and they kept those Israelis hostages until, some of the special forces from Israel came and rescued a lot of them, including Jonathan Netanyahu, who's the brother of this current prime minister. Entebbe, not Entebbe, it's Entebbe. It's 30 minutes from the capital city, Kampala.
Yeah, we call it Antabi. The one that you're talking about is basically the Antabi case. That was 1975 or 1976.
No, you say Entebbe?
And,
Where's Entebbe?
Antabi.
Entebbe. Oh my God, this is Africa. This is the African one, guys. It's Entebbe. It's a place in Uganda. It's like 30 minutes, less than 30 minutes from the capital city, Kampala. It starts with E-N-T-E, I think double B-E.
You're good at spelling.
Yes. And by the way, when they rescued those hostages, there was a lady, an old lady, I think it was 88 or 87 years at that time, called Dora Blush, because she was ill in the facility. They took her to hospital outside. So when they did the rescue, she was the one that was left behind. And I think Saddam liquidated her immediately. Not Saddam.
Oh, Idi Amin, you mean?
Idi Amin, I'm so sorry. Not Saddam, Idi Amin, yeah.
You cannot replace dictators. Each one had a different style. I mean,
Yeah.
like, for those who don't know, by the way, it's really hilarious. There were, in one of the conferences that Saddam Hussein actually eliminated nearly 22 of his own opponents. He had gathered everybody within the same political party, and they had also what you call the military generals among them. And
Yeah,
then
I
he
was
stood there
taking
and he
them
said,
out. Oh my God.
oh, every single person
That
you
was
call,
gangster.
I call out their name.
Leila,
Like I saw
Leila,
it recently.
sorry to interrupt you. You know what that looked like? It looked like the conference that Stalin had when they mention the name and they just take them downstairs or they take them for firing squad. You know who did that again? Stalin did that, and Mengistu, Haile Mariam. So Mengistu was the dictator of Ethiopia, the leader of the Derg, until the 90s. You need to check. This guy is also, it's also fascinating. You want to learn about dictators, you need to know about Mengistu Haile Mariam. And he was the one empowered with Siad Barre in Somalia during the War of Ogaden. And both of them, by the way, America was supporting one side and the Soviet Union was supporting the other side, which is Ethiopia. And at the end of the day, they betrayed Siad Barre and he had to run out of the country to exile. He died in Lagos, Nigeria. Yeah, so it's, and the reason for that again, so this is not me just pulling out different names, is because of the politics of the Red Sea. Most of them, and this is how Ethiopia lost the access to the Red Sea to Eritrea. Because at that point, the Eritrean People's Liberation Front was supported by both Israel and I think America and other countries because they wanted to weaken Ethiopia. But now the leader of the movement at that time, Isaias Afwerki, is not a good friend of the West right now. So that's why they hate him. And this is another, and this is, take this from me. Eritrea is the melting pot. It's the melting, it's sitting on gunpowder. For any moment from now, we might see some sort of uprising. We might see real escalation in Eritrea. A lot of people are not talking about it. It's going under the radar. But the West have a clear idea and a clear plan for Eritrea. Because the Afwerki and his people are moving closer to the Russians and the Chinese. And the day they decide to give them a military base on the coast of the Red Sea, they'll find out. And by the way, people look at the war in Sudan as well. One of the reasons why this started is because the Russians wanted to place a base in Port Sudan. How many of you know about this? That the Russians had a plan in place, had an agreement in I think a month or thereabout before the war started to place the military base in Port Sudan before the conflict broke out in the town of Merowe, which is close to the capital city Khartoum. Sudan is a place where a lot of Nigerian students go to university, like Sudan, Khartoum, Omdurman, Al-Qadarif. Sudan used to be beautiful, agricultural land, and it's the biggest country in Africa before the South left in 2011.
We know of the negotiations that were happening. They were in place between the Russians and the Sudanese, but at the same time, there's something that not everybody knows. We used to carry it out. We actually had the news in recorded spaces on Twitter, and we used to call it the Africa Weekly Space every Saturday. We had friends from Sudan, Dr. Wala As-Sadiq, for example, among others, Wat Kusti. So they used to come over and they used to relay information from the ground through their parents or families who are there, or they bring people from Sudan who would speak, and also from Eritrea, Ethiopia, and we had somebody from Djibouti also speak, because the Horn of Africa and North Africa as well, and the Sahel were very important to this whole dynamics of fight. The Russians, the Chinese, and the Americans fighting over Africa. And what the Russians did, they had Plan B in store. If their negotiations had failed to take over Port Sudan, they already had Wagner Group in Darfur. And the French sent their troops also from Central Africa towards Sudan and Darfur, and Nyala basically, and at one point the Germans...
Nyala is in Darfur.
And Nyala. Yeah, and Nyala, I'm telling you, the places where they fought. And the British sent underground agents over there, and the Americans sent fighters over there as well. The Emiratis eventually also sent everybody to fight over there. This started around 2018 onwards. Wagner Group entered the game around 2022. With the break of the Ukrainian war, the Russians actually activated Wagner Group on the ground in Africa. And that's how they actually got the contracts later on, because they were there before anybody else. And this is something that not everybody knows.
No.
If you look at Wagner Group...
Leila.
Wait,
Hold on. I was in, Central Africa. This is the first place. It was in Central Africa. It's not in the Sahel. It was in Central Africa. It's because there was the Central African Bush War. You can check me up on this. They were in Central Africa before they went to Syria. Wagner, Yevgeny Prigozhin and his people were in Central Africa during the Central African Bush War. Huh?
Wagner Group was activated on the Operation Takeover Africa since the break of the war in Ukraine. Before that, they were going, under the radar, doing things without anybody talking much about them. They were in Africa. But they started signing these contracts with governments and actually kicking out the French in certain African places, if you remember, and taking over. That happened right during throughout, because the Ukraine war is not over yet, during that time. And that's when you started seeing lots of European military interests in Africa and certain African countries being clipped, to the extent that the Americans tried to do a coup. Remember that coup that they caught an American spy at one point?
In Congo. This was in Congo.
In Congo, exactly. It was in a country that the Russians had already signed an agreement with the military over there, and that's when the coup was being staged by the Americans to actually flip it against the Russians. And the beauty of the whole thing is that the fight between the Russians and the Americans in Africa, across Africa, and mainly in Sudan, because it's a key country when it comes to the Red Sea, Bab el-Mandeb, among others. Exactly. Red Sea, Bab el-Mandeb, and Suez Canal. So like the international trade that goes from east to west and west to east passes from there.
But
so that's when the Americans go.
So the Russians hedging their bets in North Africa, in the West Mediterranean, on the coast of the Red Sea, and also in the Sahel of Africa in the center, because the Sahel is the belt between the Sahara and the Savannah part of Africa. Very, very strategic. The Sahel corridor runs from Guinea in the west all the way to Eritrea in the east. So you're talking about Wagner. The emergence of Wagner in Africa goes back to their presence in Bangui. Bangui is the capital. By the way, there's a guy that I know very well called General Foss. there's a place, but the Bongi was separated into two parts. One of them you have the Seleka and the Anti-Balaka. So the Seleka are the Muslim militias in quote, and then you had the Anti-Balaka, which were Christian animist groups, and then there was the emergence of Michel Jotodia around the period of 2012. So the French had Central Africa. By the way, they were taking gold from Central Africa. And this conflict, like I said, is connected to the Second Congo War, the Bush War in Central Africa, and also the conflict in Darfur, because it is along the same corridor. So the Russians, because of the history with King Bokassa, you need to check this. Please, guys, write this down. King Bokassa, had, good relations with the Soviets in the 50s. And the Russians, the way we see the Russians in Africa, we don't see them and view them with the same lens that we see, for instance, Gulf countries, or we see the Europeans. The Russians are seen as saviors, quote unquote. Why? Because the Russians never colonized any territory in Africa, never stole anything from us. If anything, they have invested in transferring real technology. There's this plant called the Ajakuta Steel Company. The Russians built and gave to Nigeria as a gesture of friendship. And this was during the reign of Shehu Shagari. So yeah, the Russians were in around the period of 2012-13, when the uprising was also happening in Mali, when what's his name, Sanogo took over power in Mali. All of this is connected, but let's stay on Central Africa. Before they were deployed in Ukraine, they were in Car training the forces of Faustin Ashon Todera after the removal of Michel Jotodia. So they were there, and the emergence of them in Sudan was around 2019 or 2020 upward, before the conflict in Ukraine, before the fighting in Ukraine started. But they were in Central Africa, and again, they were supporting the forces. They marched in places like Mali and Burkina Faso, because what the French do is they support different groups in Africa. And if you want, this is a topic I can talk about for 5 hours, particularly in Niger, with the different factions that are supporting the what do you call them, the Tuareg, the Tubu tribe. And these are people that are more or less you see as minority, but they occupy strategic places and places that of economic interest to companies like Arriva and Total Energies in the Sahel. Yeah, so in Mali as well.
When you said Sahel, you said Guinea. I think you made Gambia, right?
No. When I said the
Guinea is
Sahel,
under Gambia. Like Sahel, it's Gambia and Senegal, and then you go with Mauritania, Mali, Niger. I'm not.
No. I mentioned the
Chad,
Sahel.
and then there's Sudan, right?
No,
And then you go
yeah,
all the way to the other side where there's Eritrea and Djibouti.
I'll show you
But
the
Djibouti is
map.
part of it. It's Eritrea.
You
No,
mentioned
but like I'm saying,
Gambia.
it's Gambia, not Guinea. It's Gambia and Senegal. It starts with Gambia and Senegal.
Guinea,
Mauritania, Ghana is no. Guinea is under. You have
on the coast.
okay. Which Guinea? There's
Let
Guinea-Bissau
me
and
finish.
there's Guinea
Let me
that's up
finish.
Sierra Leone.
Can I show you the map from the Sahel? Think about belt. The Sahelian belt runs from the west.
Sahel is. I know what Sahel is, but when we're
Okay.
talking about the countries where the
So
Sahel
the countries are in the
starts,
Sahel. Yeah, I
so
can
the
mention them.
Sahel
Mauritania is one of them.
starts from the
Mali
ocean
is one of
side.
them.
From the ocean side, Senegal, Gambia, and Mauritania are the first ones from
Yes.
the ocean side, right? Then
From
you
the
go
west.
to Mali, Niger, and Chad. Sorry, from the ocean side, which is basically the west. The ocean is on
Yes.
the west side, the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, so you have Mauritania, Senegal, and Gambia. It's not Guinea, because there's Guinea-Bissau and then Guinea underneath. Then there's Sierra Leone. How do I know that? Because my best friend is from Sierra Leone. Her name is Amal Aid. She's like the descendant of Lebanese who went there like in the 1800s, and they left basically with the riots that happened. Put that on the side. So we have. I was asking you like because you said Guinea, and I was like, no, you mean Gambia, right? It's
No,
Gambia,
I
not Guinea.
don't mean, of course, Gambia and Senegal, but some parts of Guinea. Let me show you the map in a second. And then, by the way, if you check the countries in the Sahel, so not all of them, like Nigeria, is also categorized as part of the Sahel, but it's just the northern tip of Nigeria that's part of the Sahel. The whole of the main countries in the Sahel are 3. The main ones that are in the center is Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. These are the main ones. Then if you move all the way to the east, Chad, and all the way to Eritrea. So I'll show you the Sahelian belt in a second. Give me a second. Of course, there's Guinea.
About Africa.
Of course,
Look,
there is
we
Guinea.
speak of
No,
Africa,
Gambia is not landlocked. So basically, you're referring to Mauritania, right? This is Mauritania. This is Mauritania.
Senegal, and Gambia.
Just a second. Mauritania, but Mauritania is not of Guinea. Guinea is on the coast. So, and Senegal
Nothing.
is.
No. 1 second. You have to. Okay. So you need to actually
Can
get
I,
the
can I,
map.
just give me a second.
Yeah, but
Just give me a second. Just give me a second. So this is Mauritania. I have basically rode on a motorbike with a friend from Mali to, I know this place.
right? But
So
you
what I'm
have
saying
you
is
have a
that
laptop. You have a
let me,
laptop, right?
let me,
No, you have a laptop. 1 second. You have a laptop, right? Go to Google Earth and write Sahel states, or just basically write Mauritania or Senegal, because Senegal is not landlocked and Gambia is not landlocked.
I
And
know, I
for
never
a
said
fact
that.
yeah, but I'm saying like the Sahel starts from Gambia, Senegal, and Mauritania, because under Gambia there's Guinea-Bissau, not Guinea. And then there's Guinea, and then there's basically Sierra Leone. You get my
Guinea,
point?
no, hold on. Guinea is on the coast. Guinea is on the coast, not Guinea-Bissau. Guinea is on the coast as well.
But there's Guinea-Bissau, then there's Guinea.
I know the
Guinea-Bissau is
difference
above
between,
Guinea.
I know the difference. Guinea-Bissau is a
But
Lusophone country.
open
They
the
speak
map,
Portuguese.
please. I might be wrong, but please open the map. Let's see it.
No, I know Guinea-Bissau. I know Guinea and I know Guinea-Bissau. I know all these countries. Like Guinea-Bissau is a Lusophone country, Portuguese
I'm not
speaking.
saying that you don't know the countries. I'm not saying that you don't know the countries, but I'm asking you if it's Guinea or Gambia that you meant, because I know for a fact, that basically it's Senegal and Gambia above Guinea-Bissau. Guinea is way underneath
By
those
the way,
three countries.
Gambia is even less of a Sahel country because, again, like I said, all those countries on the coast, from Mauritania in the north down, because Senegal and Gambia is a tiny piece of land on the coast. So Senegal is also part of it. So you are right when you say Senegal and Gambia, but I was talking about Guinea. Mauritania is on the north of Guinea, and Senegal and Gambia are the south of Guinea. So all of them there from the coast on the west all the way to the east. I'm trying to pull up the Google map. Give me a second.
So in that case, I need to see basically if it's Guinea-Bissau or Guinea. Right
No, it's
under
not
Gambia.
Guinea-Bissau. It's Guinea. This is where you have Doumbia. Doumbia is the president. He also took over in a military coup. So there was a period of a military coup in okay, this is what I was trying to explain to you. Give me a second. Both of them. Both Guinea-Bissau and Guinea. So this is what I'm trying. Oh, my camera is blurry. Give me a second. Both of those Guinea are on the coast. Okay. So this is what I mean. From here, and this is the Guinea I was talking about, both Guinea and Guinea-Bissau. These are the two countries. It's Guinea-Bissau, this is Guinea, this is Gambia, Senegal, and Mauritania. So this is the, and by the way, Guinea and Mali are in fact, when the Alliance of Sahelian States, or AES, was formed, they were touting the idea of using Guinea to have access to the sea. Okay? Sierra Leone is in the south of Guinea, and this is Guinea-Bissau. These two countries, mostly, if you look at these maps, these are arbitrary maps that were drawn by the French and the Portuguese. So this is the Portuguese-speaking one, which is very tiny, and this is the Guinea I'm talking about. And again, this is the Senegal, this is the Gambia you're talking about, and Senegal, and Mauritania in the north.
So, Sav, this is what I was trying to tell you. So when it comes to the political division, as reporters, when we say Sahel countries, because I did a space not so long ago on Twitter, when we speak about the Sahel countries, we speak Mauritania, Senegal, Gambia, then you move to Mali, then you move to Niger and Burkina Faso, then you move to Chad, Sudan, Eritrea, and basically some people include Algeria, but I don't usually do that because I consider it North Africa. And then some people say Nigeria is part of it, and Nigeria is kind of part of it. But yeah, I always found it very interesting why they didn't include Benin, Togo, and others. And somebody explained it to me in the past that those countries were never in the same strip of trade at any point. Sometimes they were controlled because of the different countries that controlled them. That's why they weren't considered as part of the Sahel. So as Africans, you have total right to consider all of those as part of Sahel, but political-wise and editorial-wise, when you say Sahel, it's just Senegal, Gambia, Mauritania. Then you go to Mali and Burkina Faso. You go to Nigeria and Niger and Chad, which is very interesting because now it like expands, right?
Leila, call it again. Call it again. What did you call it?
Niger and Nigeria.
Niger. Say Niger. By the way, you have an African friend in me. Niger.
Tu parles le français, c'est Niger.
Yeah,
en anglais, on dit Niger and Nigeria. I'm sorry about that. Je parle français car je suis libanaise, non?
Yeah, I know you're good. So we call it Niger. By the way, because I spend a lot of time here and here. Most of the people in the north, this is what they call it Niger. It's Niger. and Chad and Sudan, all the way to the coast. This is what I mean. So politically, the description is also different from the geography. Sometimes the politics, just like Israel, what do you call it? Israel relates more with the Europeans. Even in sports, they tell you they're part of the European Football Association or whatever. So the politics and the geography sometimes does not really correlate. So I understand what you mean. But the Sahel is mostly in this place. And why is Nigeria part of the Sahel? Again, it's not really one of the main Sahelian countries, but this is the heart of the Sahel: Chad, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso.
The most amazing thing last year, along with
What did the
Chad.
one the kicking out? Is it the kicking out of Barrick Gold and B2B? Because the main thing is the economics. The gold company
They
that's. Oh, do you know about the
restructuring
Barrick?
themselves. They actually regained their what you call gold mining sector, and they are now basically gaining a lot. The Europeans used to basically slash the prices that they used to give them. And
Yeah,
I'm really proud. I'm really proud to have basically friends from Burkina Faso who are like over the skies when it comes to the fact that they are taking matters into their own hands. I'm really happy for them.
Since I know you now and you're interested in this topic, I will be going. I was there in 2022 or thereabout. I'll be going back to Burkina Faso and Mali. So in Niger, you're right. They said the same thing. And if you're interested, I can give you materials from the ground if something you're interested in. So in Niger as
Twitter?
well. Huh?
If you have Twitter or X, you can actually join our spaces and tell people about it directly, live.
No problem. You see, Niger, if you move to this period, this place is called Ayer Anazar. This is the Arlit mountain. This town of Arlit, please, if you're interested in doing any you're in writing anything about Africa and the role of the French, pick a topic and write down Arlit. Now, Arlit is a place where a river was very, very, very powerful. The French company that they later renamed as Orano, they polluted Arlit with 4 million tons of uranium residue. Unlivable. So when
Wait. That's where basically one of the largest uranium mines were, and people were getting
this is
cancer and other
Arlit.
things.
It's around
Okay,
the Azair. This is Arlit. This is the town of Arlit. And by the way, this is the Ayer Mountains. Ayer and Azawak. This is the region of Ayer and Azawak. All this place, uranium mines everywhere. And who are the people parading and running this place? Bandits. Different groups that are armed to the teeth by the French to fight against the government in the south. So the government is in Niamey. Zinder is one of the major. Zinder, this from here, from Katsina State, with Nigerians trek from Katsina to Maradi. So there's a train line that the Nigerian government, the last one, wanted to build between Nigeria and Niger. It goes all the way to Maradi. In fact, you see Hausa people living on both sides of the border. These lines are arbitrary. So this is my homeland, basically, and we move in and out. I don't know why they drew this line. So Maradi to Zinder to Niamey, you see the power base is in the south. And the majority of Nigerians, 55% of them or thereabout, are Hausas. The tribes in the north are the ones that the French are mobilizing and telling them that they are being marginalized. So this is the dimension to the conflict. So the tribes in the north that are mostly Arabai, some of them are even, tribal, Berbers, what they call, and others are from they call them Shua Arab. And the Tuareg, and particularly the Tubu tribe. There's a guy called Risa Eji Baula. Let me write the name for you. The guy has been in power even since the days of Ibrahim Baremi Nasara.
I'll take this because people might not know about it. For those who don't understand the situation, okay? There was a big scandal back in 2011. It was my second year at the Wall Street Journal at the time about the uranium mines and Ariva, which is now Oran, right? In 2023, Niger was one of the first countries that actually stood in the face of the French. They actually gave the French ambassador, like they gave him an ultimatum. Remember that siege that they did against the French ambassador?
Yeah.
That was the Niger people. And we were making fun of the croissant part. They wouldn't allow croissant to go there into the embassy.
And you know what? Because the French embassy the French embassy at that time was close to the US embassy. So they were throwing food over the fence. They were throwing bread over the fence to to the Niger embassy, not to the French embassy, and giving them food because the
Because
people
the
came out.
ambassador,
The ambassador refused to leave. They were throwing food over the fence.
exactly, he was insolent. He was so insolent. I mean, like he had that colonial mindset.
Yeah.
We control you. Like, I'm not going to leave. And they told him, you are a persona non grata. You have 48 hours to leave otherwise. And the guy like nearly died.
And you know the other thing, when it all started, France, and by the way, this is what the French thought. They thought America was the one that's doing it to them because America, and the French were like, these Americans are so ungrateful because France was basically the king in Niger and giving sub-licenses to German companies. There were German troops there. There were French troops there. There were US personnel there. In fact, the biggest drone base was in Agadez. $200 million drone base Americans built in Agadez, and they're using it for surveillance and subversive activities in the whole of the Sahel. They're basically aerial intelligence and whatever. You can check this up, the US drone base in Agadez. So what they did at that time, the French did not say anything to the Americans. In fact, America refused to recognize it as a coup because they believe they can somehow talk to the Nigerian government to kick out the French and keep them. So what Niger did was to isolate France, kick out France first, and then, you know, the Americans are also, they have this colonial mindset and mentality. So Victoria Newland came and tried to have conversation. You know what they did? American diplomats flew into Niger without permission. They came into the country, they came into the airspace of the country without any permission and demanded to see the leadership of Niger, Abdurrahman Chiani and his people. And they said, no, we are not going to see you, we want you out. So they started piling pressure on them and they eventually kicked them out. So it wasn't just France, but the French were like, hang on a second, it's the Americans that are, because America refused to recognize it as a coup, was hoping that they can somehow, you know, make peace with the junta and to allow them to stay. All these guys they're using these places not just for mining of resources, but for drugs. Drug trafficking is another problem in Africa. Most of the people that are actually doing the narcotics trafficking, it's not the criminals here, it's nation states that are using the coercive apparatus of the state to fuel and funnel individual interests, particularly on the coast of West Africa, on the Atlantic coast, which we call the Gulf of Guinea. Most of those countries there, they're using that region for trafficking. So they're using Africa as a playground. And I'm glad they did that. And one other thing again that the French were doing, because in Mali, they have been kicked out. In Burkina Faso, they have been kicked out. So they were using this corridor to send arms to, I'll show you just give me a second. I'm trying to, because the two places that the Tuareg refused to leave is Kidal. You see Kidal?
I need to drop.
Oh, sorry.
I really need, no, it's because I'm going to change areas and I need to go back to the capital. So
and by the way, I'm going to reach out to you. I talked to my friend already. I don't know whether I should reach out to you, but we can talk later. I really appreciate your insight and you also being interested in Africa. Not a lot of people care about the depth of the politics in Africa like you can tap into.
No, I'm interested. Do you know why I'm interested? It's because on the international geopolitical scene, when you have three major powers fighting over a place and they keep it under the wraps, it's total media blackout. It means that's where the real fight is happening as well.
Yes.
So basically what's happening in Sudan is not haphazard. Darfur has been happening since 2006, 2005. I was part of UNIFIL's, basically, which is Department of Peacekeeping Operations in the United Nations. In South Lebanon, that's basically UNIFIL. And we had access to, I was part of UNIFIL.
I have uncles that went to Lebanon.
Oh, nice. Okay, so because I was part of UNIFIL for a whole year, I had access to all DPKO files at one point through my friends. So one of them basically had to do with the peacekeeping missions in Africa. And I found some reports on Darfur, and it was very interesting to see that the Chinese were working under the table as well at the time.
The Chinese were supporting the government.
The French, the Americans, and the Russians. But the main fight is the Americans, Russians, and the Chinese. And
because China was
nobody speaks about. That's a sad part.
But because China was buying oil, because Sudan was sanctioned at that time, and China was buying oil and in turn giving them arms. In fact, most of the weapons that the RSF used initially in Sudan, in the Darfur area, were coming from China.
Do you want to know the real reason? Sudan is the largest, it's the breadbasket of the Arab world. It also has the largest number of livestock. It's also the largest
Country in
country in
Africa
Africa
until
before they actually cut it
before
into half,
2011.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly, the 2011 partition. And at the same time, I really need to leave. Look, we'll continue this later on, but you have to understand all the game that's being played in Sudan now started since 2005, and everything that's happening in Africa now has to do with the Russian, American, and Chinese fight, and they keep it away from the media because that's where the real fight is. That's where their financial interests are. When it comes to East Mediterranean, it's the trade corridors and energy pipelines extending from east to west. Now the Russians and the Americans are talking. Look at Azerbaijan and Armenia shaking hands despite the fact that they were slaughtering each other a few years back. So I'm going to leave it at that and we'll talk later, Habibi. Bye.
All right, take care.
W, like, bro, we love the bro. Sav, can you do these more, please?
Yeah, I mean that's
We
yeah,
need more
because
geopolitical
yeah,
stuff.
I'm so happy that she can tap into some of the details of this because again I did some minor stuff with MINUSMA in Mali, and the fact that she has a lot of these details, it's a lot very, like I said, it's difficult to impress me. So when people come up and try to bombard you with articles they read or whatever, I just sit down, it's boring. Yeah, but she has knowledge, real knowledge, without looking at any article or downloading any file. She's saying it the way it is on the ground. And this is on the basis of knowledge a priori. She knows what she's talking about.
Sav is impressed.
Okay, can I say something before I drop?
Yeah.
Mashallah, she's very knowledgeable, as we say, mashallah. She knows a lot about geopolitics, but I still have to say, I wish that she, I would have had the chance when she was here. I wish that she's listening. I don't agree with saying that we Palestinians have to be grateful for the Saudis and the Emiratis for helping us once upon a time, 40 or 50 years ago.
No, absolutely not. No.
Okay?
Look, in our
I do
defense,
not agree with this.
Rima.
I'm really hurt because of this, because
No,
this
Rima.
is like, I really got hurt because of this, to be honest.
No,
I
Rima.
didn't like-
Rima, in our defense, this was during because I challenged the narrative that the Saudis are somehow get the pass in the region. And what she was saying is that we should be careful not to generalize the whole system as being completely
We're not just-
useless.
when we talk-
Yeah,
we
let
talk
me
about-
finish.
Yeah.
Let me finish.
Yeah.
No, Rima, I'm on your side. I'm on your side.
but
I'm just saying.
we're talking about government tab, right? We're
Let
talking
me
about
finish.
government.
Let me finish.
Yeah.
This was in context. She was saying that at some point, King Faisal and the leadership in Saudi Arabia held Palestine close to their heart and took action, including the oil embargo around 73. So she was saying, this is in her defense, that they did something practical. Again, sometimes it's about communication, right? How you express your. And by the way, I don't agree that the Saudis did something and you should be grateful for. What? The Saudis are basically bankrolling the Israelis and the Americans and so on and so forth.
Look,
So
just
again,
2 days ago, they said, sorry, you know the story. I kept repeating it for the past 2 days when they said weapons through Turkey, and you know it, and you posted something about it.
Italy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Italy. I said Italy, and they have done it before through Greece too. And I said through Italy, and the name of the ship is called Yambu. I know all about it, but I cannot agree on like how on earth can I be said that we should be grateful to them? And they are the ones now. The Saudis are the ones that are urging the Lebanese government in order to urge them to make the Lebanese age to withdraw their weapons. They are the ones. And as you mentioned earlier about Al Hariri, who kidnapped him? Like
that
how
the
can I be?
Saudis,
And when we listen, and even when we condemn USA, we don't condemn the people. We don't talk about the people. We don't talk about the people of Egypt. We don't talk about the people of Jordan. We don't talk. We are talking about
talking
the
about the
government.
system.
The system, exactly the system. So why